3 people for homozygous.
Distance yourself from being in the game.
Wow.
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
Wait, what? Whoa, whoa, whoa.
No, there's not. It should be 8
Hey,
on little a, and then 16 on big A. Should be, no, this is 12. 12 plus 4, so it's 16 and 18.
And if you this is a
So it's
mutation.
11 and 13.
I thought we would do that now.
And then 10, 14 and 10. 10, 14. No. 14, 10. Six plus 8. And then it's 14.
Okay, very good. So if we go back to, I think the program is crashed. Okay, and then we'll put class data for analysis. So, vamos. Te llamaron para qué? Okay, so you're going to complete the table below for the population. So the data we just collected. What are the theoretical allele and genotype frequencies in the initial parental generation? So the theoretical allele and genotype frequencies can be. How can you get that? When you look at this.
Oh, con el parental tú puedes poner como que 2PQ equals.
O sea, like for the parental 12 out of 24 were big, P plus Q equals 1, and then little
Yeah,
a was 12
pero
out of
ahí
24.
tienes como que
But that's just the parental.
el genotype que es heterozygous, which is 2PQ. You know, in the whole
Yeah,
like.
but it's P squared plus 2PQ plus.
Right, but like you want to know like P and Q, and all you have is 2PQ. No?
So would it be 2 times 12 times 12?
Well, okay, you know that P is going to be
Times 2.
the square root of 6.
Plus
For
half.
instance, in the first one.
Oh no, so yeah, but you want the parental.
Okay, then. Yeah.
So what would you do then?
6. 6.
Theoretical allele and genotype frequency of that parental generation. Vamos, guys, come on. Stop playing with that. Let's see.
It's actually
3.5 for the parental.
For the parental,
like in the on the far right, not the P squared, just that.
Uh-huh.
8.5 and 0.5.
okay. So let's see, another person want to come and fill the chart. Wait, hold on, let me. I have okay, so copy.
Go there.
Okay, now, sorry. So, 0.5.
.5 and .25.
Increment?
And then this point.
Make sure you,
Wait, that can't be true though.
I mean, I was talking
Yeah,
about.
that's, it's correct, don't worry.
Okay.
El correcto es...
ladies, over here.
El correcto es 1 en el medio.
Yeah, wait, isn't it?
El correcto es todos los dos se ponen en el medio.
Está bien, yo no.
Sí, esa,
Pues
okay.
es que yo.
Y
Que los. No.
0.25 times 0.5 is 0.25 times 2 is 0.5.
But the parental were all ese. En el parental generation, todos eran heterozygous. One was heterozygous, sí, cero.
Yeah,
I agree con eso.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, in the parental generation, there were no homozygous presented
Because
for homozygous dominant.
P squared plus
It's actually just.
It's actually one.
Es cero,
It's
cero.
P squared plus 2
Okay,
plus
we still have,
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it has to add up to 1, but why is that? Like, I understand why, because you have the data, you know that the
Wait, no.
frequency of the gene type heterozygous.
So 2PQ is equal to 0.5.
Cero y cero, right?
so do we leave this like that then?
The frequency of alleles in the parental generation. It was half and half. Okay, está bien. And then.
Two times.
As long as you have to,
It has to be 0.25.
No, it's a multiplier.
That's wrong.
Okay, then what?
So sería punto 25 y después, what does this mean? Punto 5 y después punto 25.
That's Hardy one.
Hardy one.
Okay.
I want.
Oh, it'd be
In
theoretical.
theory,
In theory.
exactly.
There it is.
Guys, in theory, we would have what?
0.25.
There.
Why?
In theory.
Oh,
in theory.
do not.
Like,
Theory.
Actual versus.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's the whole.
And then instead of 1, it's 0.5.
Yeah.
No, in theory that would be the F1.
No.
Yeah, because your parents are both heterozygous, and then that's the parental. And the F1 would be 0.25, 0.5, and
But it's
0.25.
frequency of the allele. Like
Yeah, we're
in
using the
ILA.
frequency of the alleles of the parent generation first. To find the frequency of genotypes
Like,
within the parent
yeah,
generation,
this
not
wasn't the case.
F1. Yeah, this is like the
okay. Do you
original.
mind starting from zero, explaining what you did, what we did here?
Okay, so in the actual
So listen up.
in the actual experiment we did, then all the parents were heterozygous. But this is theoretically in a population, right?
That is a hard one.
That is how however this would be the values.
Exactly. So this population is respecting all those 5 situations, right? In terms of the
Yeah.
size of the population, all
Yeah,
that.
get that actual. So
So
we're gonna
now-
see does it comply with it or not.
Exactly. So now we have to go where? We have to look at the F5.
Yeah, theoretically.
What they do.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we go back to. Wait. Sorry, it's right here. Okay, so we go to the F5.
Yeah, it's como más.
14 and 10. So 14 represents the what?
So it'd be 14 out of 24.
Okay.
Whatever that is.
That's
I'm sorry?
It would be 14 out of 24 for the P.
Let's see, guys. You have your
That's like
phone.
0.58. 0.58.
0.58. And then it would be 10 out of 24, which would be
Excuse me, I said it
0.6.
first.
No, 0.42. Yeah. Is that again? Right? And then,
So,
I mean, can someone square this?
let's see. Silvia's gonna square 0.58 and Maria's gonna square 0.42.
Ese es el actual.
Ah, ese es el actual, eso va.
Yeah.
It's like when I
No, he has a point. Like, okay, isn't this the actual
Sí,
value?
¿verdad? Esto fue lo que, this is what we collected.
So,
Ah,
Pues la vale ya.
but then how do we find more?
No, carry it. Como si fuera.
Porque no sé cómo hacerlo. And, okay, so then how do we find the theoretical?
So in the theoretical, do you guys, we need to find the theoretical after 5 generations. Let's see, what can you come up with?
Lots of Punnett squares.
Lots of, okay,
Might be the same.
how can,
I mean, that's, it should be the same.
The frequency.
No, you
explain, can you explain that? What do you mean the same?
It should be the same porque if it's in party member equilibrium, pues it's not gonna evolve ni nada.
So what's the same?
So frequency of those will be the same. So the frequency of the DNS.
Did you get that? The population didn't change.
Does it need to be the same, or is it like you do like a chi-square or something to create that?
Chi-square, well, if you are proposing, right, if you have a hypothesis and that you want to reject or you want to accept, yeah, you can do the chi-square here. We're not going to get into that now to be able to finish the activity. But what happens is that, again, we're respecting those 5 conditions for Hardy-Weinberg, so the numbers should not change. Because, and even if we look at the title of the activity, we said that the population is on Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, so it should be that. Pero let's see if that actually happened. So what was the root?
What was the square?
Era 0.333. No, 0.34.
0.34. And then this one square? This one square? 1.42. 21.8. And then 2 times this. No, 2 times this times this.
So wouldn't the difference be like
2 times 0.58 times 0.42.
Wouldn't the difference be like
0.49.
Here?
no, in the middle section, wouldn't it be like 14 and that would be 0.01 and yeah.
What?
So
Did
then
you-
it's the theoretical versus the
Did you square? You mean that you squared the this and that? Or
oh, I see.
so yeah, the values will not change. Okay, so how far are we from the real, from the theoretical values?
Very.
No,
Not too much.
that.
I mean, I
Okay,
guess.
look at this one, how cool. But then here and here, it deviates a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But it's because it was completely, which is another condition, random. Questions about this. Patricia, Carlos, what are you doing? Victoria,
Wait,
Jan.
is there any way to predict which one, so like, the actual number, the
actual is like
average,
when we were doing everything,
can you
we
tell
those
if the
numbers are the
homozygous dominant and
Like,
the
if remember we
homozygous
assumed
recessive
the
is gonna
position
like,
of the
can you tell which one is gonna rise and
But
which
that's
one?
already that is saying, okay, it's not, it is random. So,
Probably there's a way, I don't know how to do that.
That is just depending on the
it's applied by squaring
genotype of the.
this, and that I got.
Maybe the problem is we should be respecting the 5 conditions you can predict. But yeah, it can be random in any other couple of example or population.
Out of 24.
But honestly, I don't know. I don't know how
And
to.
then you squared it. Okay.
Okay, are we okay with this? So let's now make things a
Am I
little
supposed
bit.
to write this down?
No, we just make sure, ask questions, you understand this, but I'm not gonna ask you to handle this. Guys, take time, read the question, don't just yell an answer or whatever. So, okay, read it, couple of seconds, read that while I get rid of it. Okay, so what does this mean about the population? One person. Let's see. What does this mean for the population?
It is having highly under
It's not
not the population.
of why.
No, because it didn't follow the expected values.
So it didn't follow the expected values. But did we break one of the rules or one of the conditions for the? Huh?
Well, that's because I'm not sure if I'm right.
No, well.
Are they evolving? Like, how would you tell if they're evolving or not? If
It's
the
just
numbers
not the same like I've already running with principle equation with it.
So from you guys, can you guys?
Follow the conditions.
Okay, can you tell me? Let's go over the conditions.
We did not have a large population. So.
Okay, I think that's the.
And also, it was random mating. We didn't just choose specific phenotypes to mate. It was always.
But that's one of the conditions
Yeah.
to be random.
Pero yo pienso que we didn't follow
So therefore, it's not in.
No, it could be.
No, I think it could be random. I think does that mean that you can't select?
It's not
Could we
random.
say that our circle
I don't know, is it random or not?
random?
It has to be random for it to be entirely wide variable.
It is
but
random.
it's not random for us
So it's
because
not
maybe
Exactly. So
it's easier to get a bigger bola más grande.
so it's like she said, we were using siblings, right, to get the next generation. So definitely the population was not big enough, and that's why those numbers they don't match exactly that they expected.
Maybe it's not random in that maybe the bigger ball was easier to get out or something, but not so much.
Then the other thing is, and we're gonna do that now, is that we did not, and that explains what happened. My expense is that we didn't do this. That you should seek now a new mate. Okay, so now we're gonna do it for the next for the rest of the exercises. You're gonna stand up. So we're not gonna work in pairs. You're gonna mate with one person, then you're gonna go around and mate with another, right? So to see if well, now that we're gonna have other. ¿Cómo? No. You mate with one person, then you go for another one and another one until you have the F5. Okay. So I think what happened was that the population was not big enough. We kept using the.
It could have easily been que yo y Carlos cogimos todos clear. So we were all, so maybe that's cute, that's un poquito, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so look, we're gonna use the same charts over here. So now we're gonna select against homozygous recessive. In the natural world, not all genotypes have the same rates of survival. The environment may favor some genotypes while selecting against others. You guys are familiar with that, right? In case 2, we will create a more realistic simulation by applying the selection pressure to the population. In this case, you will assume that the homozygous recessive individuals never survive. So let's say there's a disease, they're not fit enough to survive predation, right? 100% selection against, none of them will survive. And that heterozygous and homozygous individuals will survive. So, again, you will start as a heterozygous. Okay, start with your initial heterozygous genotype, 2 and 2. Produce your offspring as you did in case 1. This time, however, if your offspring is little a, does not survive to reproduce. So, what's going to happen with you? Are you going to go and get a mate? Okay. No, so you don't have to look for a mate.
No, you're dead.
Since we want to maintain a constant population size, the same 2 parents must try again until they produce full surviving offspring. Okay, because if we do that, the size of the population will decrease very quickly and we're not going to get good results. Did you get that?
So we have to mate again.
Si le tocan 2 chiquitos, 2 blancas, right? 2 white ones, you need to keep reproducing again, taking until you finally get either homozygous dominant or heterozygous. And then you can move around mating. Okay? Exactly.
Like you don't count it, I guess.
Como lo haces otra vez.
Exactly. And it's for the purpose of having enough individuals. So if we use surviving offspring in the data table below, as in case 1, after successfully reproducing, you become your surviving offspring and mate at random with another individual in the population. Record the genotypic offspring in the data below. So you can use, or you can make another data like this one and make away. Heterozygous. Yeah. So you should be. You guys can make with the person right next to you, and then you stand up and you move around.
Wait, so how do, like, so everyone has to keep track of the data?
See, yeah. So you rely. Okay.
Serena,
Remember that? Remember what you did in the first case? So that first is going to be that first is going to be the second. Okay, we're going to find it. So find another person and you find
your phone bill, wait, me and John they have to go through their own ones. We don't have our own. Wait, what were you? Okay. Choose one.
What are we doing? No. We have a training one. Just make it with my friend and someone else. We already made it. Oh, let's go. Damn it, no, I'm dead. Yes. Crap. This is so stressful. All of them do not accept words. Go. Let's make your movie.
Yay!
Crap.
no sex.
You died again.
What if you want to tell me?
Yay! Okay. Okay, mine is
Wait,
you're big.
no, okay.
We're both big. Big A. John, mate with me. Is that yours?
Alicia.
White, small white person. Big, clear person. That's for you. And then again. Oh, it's I mean, okay, this will be your baby. You want to make me? Yes, same. It's not random.
Hello.
We're done.
López. Ah, bueno, otra vez. Serena. Who's missing one? Hey, me falta un generation.
Sí, pero no es eso.
This is recording.
After your, por ejemplo, after F4,
This is recording this.
tenga que ser A, tenga que ser todo white.
You're so clear, isn't it?
Pues todo clear, todo clear.
Me falta un generation.
No.
Yeah, she made it with someone else.
Yo, ella es como blanco. Ahí. Tenga que ser todo.
Okay, she only that part she was wrong, right?
De aquí, tú sacaste, eran todos blancos, eran todos clear.
If it's AA,
Okay,
I gotta
de
go.
aquí, de F3. Cuando dice F3, cuando dice F3, eran todos clear en tu vaso. Para el sistema.
No, okay.
Sí, sí.
No, o sea, he's right, but I think it's the way he's explaining. Okay.
Mira, a mí me falta un generation, dale.
The person who you made it with, you were making this baby.
Who was at 3?
Was it me?
It was Calero.
Silvia, Calero.
Two.
Okay, so then that means you
Actually, I
had
had all AA. I had all.
You had all clear.
And you had all clear.
and I had so you had
There's a
it's not about me. It's not about
Okay,
me. It was
actually-
your. I had
All
a
my
natural
white
baby.
was just
No, you didn't have a wife. You didn't have a wife porque.
Oh, the dogs
Yeah,
had
yeah. As a
AA.
baby, you were a baby.
Dude, I put them back
My
in the
parents had what?
Okay.
Maria,
My mom when she had
So
baby
you
so
never
far.
get
Oh
I
yeah.
put everything back in the cupboard.
There are a lot of
Oh,
people.
you
Yeah.
can't do
You
that.
can do that if you're conscious that you can't use certain ones again.
Ella no sabía.
She wasn't.
Ella no sabía. So
Okay,
It's
Maria
generation.
empezamos already.
So that they
Yeah,
can,
I
but they
don't
were
know.
not having their signs.
Está bien. Es María, ya lo he hecho.
No, pero
Which is
si
like
you went
actually
down,
really cool.
Like, everybody that made it with it. Everybody that made it with it.
Tiene que empezar otra vez.
Let's have to do it again.
María, Dios mío.
Güey, pero entiende lo que se te
So what
Did you have a clear?
other universities.
I did.
Es que no importa porque metes her up también. Sí, porque
Why
tiene que
try
tener.
to clear?
No, because you had all
Oh,
red.
you have to early.
Aún María, dile a todo el mundo que se lo haga.
Pero I'm not gonna make everyone do it again.
Bueno, si no resultaban no va a salir bien.
I'm sure
Okay,
I'm
so
supposed
you
to.
had kind of something. There's a fix that for you.
Ah, pero vamos a hablar de todo.
Voy a borrar los míos. Mira todo eso que
And you
empezar otra vez.
your subject is like 30.
María dice.
A ver, tenemos we have time.
Okay, wait.
Hey, everybody erase your mistakes.
Everyone start again.
No. We're not gonna do it just because
Selena, it's not that hard.
No, Selena, es que one person.
Who messed
Oh,
up?
wait. Did everyone make with Maria?
No, pero everybody that made it with somebody else.
So everyone by
Esta es como
association.
un STD, it's like an STD.
Espera ahí.
It's like an STD.
Send me, I'll send me.
I didn't.
Oh, claro, la comida.
Ah, verdad.
But then
Pero what is everybody doing again?
Anda, para.
Everybody's there, María.
Patricia, Snake.
It's like we got HIV.
the only do we have to again? Because we're gonna have it's either baby
Alright. This is your G pool.
You have to do it. You have to do it because everyone that made it with Maria and that made it with you will be out. I know. No.
Oh, también someone that made it so.
Yeah. Okay. That's mine. Pull it randomly. That's right. Big one, because mine are okay. It's yours.
Yo, do it. Yeah, good idea. So there's no like preference.
There is, and I changed all of them at the same time.
Yeah, but if I do this. Wait, let me make a baby with you.
And you
All
are.
of them are good.
That was a wait. Hello.
Mis 5 generations salieron a
How much guys on this?
María, Serena.
Cool.
I need someone to
That's how you done? Two more months? Are you been like sitting down the entire time? Are you guys done? Are you done?
You're both missing a 4 and 5.
I need a big.
We just said right. Who did I
No, you have to make 2 children, but it doesn't matter which gender you have. You were doing it. The scenario. What were you when you gave them the I was that you did it. Yeah. It doesn't that you were gonna go and play bodies and then choose one, and it was gonna go automatically. So whatever you got, if you got. The only allele she has is big A. Whatever you got,
So like,
ella saca esto y lo saca tu saque es lo que te dio el joven heterozygous, pero ella es homozygous. I made the baby already. Sorry.
Wait, no, that's not random, right? Mine just had homozygous.
I need one person.
Wait, just do it with each other.
No, I already did it.
Like,
I don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters because she's
It doesn't. Exactly. She's a different person now.
Okay. Okay. So we're both the same person. So it's just gonna be dominant. Ay, Dios mío.
I'm gonna wear a mattress pocket.
Vamos, Lucas, hey.
What?
Ya saliste grabado en el video. Cuando diga,
Alicia, ¿qué tú haces? Yo pensé en my dog. Mira, es que tienes que chill.
You know, because it's just a soup on la mano. And then like British style. It's so good.
They're edible watermelons.
See, but I can do it for dinner. He should do that.
Okay, who wants to write on the board?
I want to write on the board.
Go for it.
Excuse me.
Hold on, wait, don't do anything. Okay, so you're gonna start raising your hand, no one talking. Oh, okay, let's see. Así que,
the parental was this, right?
Yes.
We're how many people? 12?
Oh.
Okay. Oh yeah. Entonces. Okay. So how many people got big A for F1?
For F1.
Yeah. 1, 2. How many people got heterozygous for F1?
Shock. Shock of heterozygous.
Antesa.
And Tesla.
8.
¿Cómo que el 8?
No,
No,
it
para
has to
que.
be.
100 de ustedes más Tessa 8.
It has to be.
Pero tiene que ser 10 porque Little A se murió.
Okay, raise your hand again.
I got heterozygous.
1,
Heterozygous.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
What about
Oh,
you, John?
9.
Pero no, falta uno.
Antesa, yeah.
Tesla did.
Y Tessa.
Yes.
Y
Where is she?
Tessa. No, not y Tessa, I'm like, where is she? That's from Boyo, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
F2, big A.
Otra vez.
Oh no.
No.
1, 2, 3. Carlos, tú. 4, por ahí. No, 5. Y heterozygous.
7.
3,
Mira, just a little bit.
6. Big A, F3.
Ah, F3. Yo.
Es que tiene que repetirlo.
Sí, es como
Para
si
decir
fuera
algo.
la primera vez
Ajá.
todo el
It's
día.
a surprise for him.
That's all from Big A.
Okay.
Ahí, pero no ya.
Y heterozygous.
Bueno,
1, 2, 3, 4.
ya se me quedó. Sí.
¿Y tú?
Falta uno.
Y ya.
¿Y tú?
No, yo soy big A.
Wait, ¿cómo tú sacaste el número de cabeza?
No, porque yo saqué uno
Okay.
heterozygous y los demás fueron big A.
So we have a pronoun there, right?
Trae, al otro lado.
Yo creo que es 7 aquí.
Big A.
Let's big
For
A.
F3?
No, espérate. Yo no, yo era igual.
Big
Para
A.
For F3.
F3, big A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
What about you, John?
Calero.
4, 5, 6.
I raised my hand in.
Okay, sí, do it.
Cuéntalo.
Big A. 1 para F4. Big A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Espérate, no, wait.
You were raising your hand.
Ah, sí. Es que you didn't count I didn't notice it, I didn't count the back. But yeah, big A.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Hay 3 personas con
Little A.
Levanta la mano.
1, 3. Heterozygous. 1, 2.
Heterozygous.
¿Es tuyo?
No.
We're missing one. One head.
Who's heterozygous?
What?
I was confident. I raised my hand.
Ok, pues otra vez. Para F4. Big A.
Oye, más fácil.
This is big A, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Espera. Sabía que lo dijiste.
Sí, heterozygous.
Heterozygous.
1.
But you didn't raise your
You
hand.
didn't raise your hand, pero that was
Sí,
¿Quién tú eres?
Colette,
No,
is it
no,
right?
Era así, era así.
Oye, heterozygous.
Heterozygous. 1, 2,
Ella
3.
es Patricia.
Y full.
Alright,
F5. Big A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
No canto, ¿verdad?
Y who's hetero?
Ah, no me casa, ¿verdad?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Ya, ok, ya.
Me dijo que
Estamos.
Así que aquí hay 4. 4 y 10, ¿verdad? La versa. Y 10. 10 y 7. No. 17. Ya.
Tú eres 17.
Cierto. 14 más 5. 18. 8 más 3. Y 1. Y 16 más 4, 20.
Okay, can you explain how you got these numbers?
Okay, pues,
So why 14 and 10?
since there are two individuals con big A, that means that hay cuatro big A alleles aquí, right? And then, since it's heterozygous, there are 10 of them, that means that each one has 1 and 1. So that means there are 10 alleles of this and 10 alleles of this per individual. So I just add 10 of these plus, 4 of these, in this case,
That's 14.
14. Everybody gets that?
And then 10 small a's. Okay. Okay, so then we go to the next page. What would be the theoretical?
I guess we all said that,
The
right?
same, right? Okay, can someone help out with the calculations?
Yes.
Dime.
No, well, first we need to count, right?
Yeah,
First
first you
we-
each
Right.
amount.
So,
Of the
F5 and 20 over 24,
0.83.
0.83 would be the P. Let's say 7.
Yes, it's
0.17.
Yeah. No sé cuántos.
It's a matter of
Para.
square.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Square the square
Yeah.
0.83.
0.83 squared.
0.69. Am I doing that?
Espera, wow. Pollos. Aquí hay algo malo.
Wow, wait, hold on.
Porque esto
And
tiene
then
sentido.
7.17
Okay,
squared
fine,
is
finish.
0.03.
¿Cómo?
Q squared is 0.03.
Y.
203.
Is 0.3.
Pollo.
What?
Que aquí lo que pasa.
Is that add up?
No, espera, no, es que el F5, el theoretical, no sería 0.25. You have to assume que va a ser 0.0. So you have to get this.
No, it's gonna have that genotype, it's just not gonna live.
Wait, that doesn't add
No,
up.
porque
But the conditions were what?
Wait, can you move?
What were the conditions? Or what was the condition?
Que these won't live.
Exactly.
Pues
So,
tiene que ser cero.
so, yeah, are you gonna leave that the same as the
So.
previous?
Sería entonces 0.50.
No. Tienes que hacer el Heine, whatever equilibrium, assuming 0.
Mira, it doesn't add up, pero como que I did the math
Es
again.
punto 28, no punto 30.
I can't round it.
Okay. So, tú dices que entonces usando like estos PQ values se calcula esto o no? Like,
Yo puedo.
Why don't we start by
Wait, can
okay
you
by
move?
asking?
Can you move?
Is the parental the theoretical numbers for the parental
Oh, never mind,
generation?
never mind.
Is it okay?
No.
Do you guys agree with that or not?
I mean, it could have been that, like, no,
What?
none of the parents could have been
so,
big A, little A, little A.
No, es que espera.
Let's see. Do
So
we
you
have
should-
to
No, I'm
change?
wrong, I was wrong.
But do we have to change the in the parental generation the homozygous recessive or not?
No.
You,
Se queda-
no, because some of you are homozygous recessive and you're still alive. You're going to reproduce. Is your offspring the one that's going to?
Yeah, exactly.
Right now, let's go to this.
Se queda-
So after many generations, so here 0.25. Now here
se queda-
we apply the condition: no homozygous recessive.
No, todos. No, se queda 0.25. I was wrong. Aquí se queda 0.25. Porque it's not, si tú das up, este condition isn't.
Yeah, it says it right there.
Sí.
RD1 B, yeah,
I was
it's
wrong,
true.
I was wrong.
It's still theoretically in equilibrium. Okay, so what do you see with those results?
No, eso es the
Yeah.
difference. And when you apply that condition, pues, it's not going to be attorney or whatever.
Hardy Weinberg? But if all the homozygous recessive were supposed to die, where did that 0.03 came from? Is that significant enough?
I mean, it's from the heterozygous.
so it's not like the odds
It's just
that one of those
theoretical.
babies
In practice, that would actually survive.
Okay, wait, three. You said one thing?
You got the A's from the heterozygous. Like you squared Q and you got Q from the heterozygous.
So
Okay.
these are the odds that the next
Okay,
one.
then what do you say?
I think these are the odds that like F6 could end up having someone with a small a.
It's not.
Even though it would die.
Like there's still a possibility that the next generation will still carry
Even though that we said that there's
Right.
we didn't say there's a disease that's killing everyone that is homozygous recessive.
But you still have heterozygous that's carrying the recessive, so there is a possibility que te salga una y muera.
like it's not saying that it will live, it's saying the
Like he's
possibility
right,
that it
like
will
it
be
will.
born.
Exactly. Okay. And then Sonny, do you want to add?
Oh, that's what I was saying.
Okay. Okay. Let's look at this. So, do the class results for the P and the Q values of the G5 generation agree with the predicted values?
No.
Okay. What does this mean about the population? What we said that is
Not equilibrium.
that how can you answer that? You said
And the population is not in equilibrium.
what would be another way?
Well, it's not equilibrium and more. So the
Does it go
population
so that-
Wait.
is increased or is exhibiting an increasing frequency of dominant.
So you have a fluctuation in terms of the alleles in the population. But what else? What other way you can answer that?
That means it is evolving.
Exactly. So
Can I
you
see the
have
numbers again?
Huh?
Can I see the numbers?
so you have a population that definitely is evolving.
Yeah, but it's significantly different than the European.
Yeah. So there's some natural selection is applying some force here that is not allowing those individuals to survive. Well, what happens? Then the survivors are still in the population, and eventually they will either adapt, or maybe if it's a disease, become immune to it, or create antibodies and all that. So are we okay?
Yeah.
Are we okay?
No, I was wondering if you can tell if it's evolving from just our set of data. Because when we were looking at it, you can tell that the AA population was like getting increasingly larger.
What do you mean? Like what you're recording?
Yeah. Because you get this information from our data. So can you kind of like infer that it's evolving because you're looking at our data in the first place?
Okay, but don't forget that if you use your data, that is a very limited amount of data. Okay, in order to have a good evaluation of the situation, a good analysis, you want a big population. Okay, you don't want individuals going in now. It's basically a large population. That's one of the statements that have to be. Oh my God, I keep forgetting the word. One of the conditions that have to be met in order for the Hardy-Weinberg, for the population to be in Hardy-Weinberg. So, can we say no? No.
Like,
I mean, there's a possibility, but it's
yeah,
not
because
going
when
to
we
be
were
very
looking at our data, it was like you can tell that at first there was 0 AA, and then each generation there was more AA, more. So it's like you can tell that it's kind of like moving towards that characteristic.
Okay, but I mean, yes. So the answer is yes. You can do that. As a scientist, if I'm doing a research that in which I want to analyze and publish, and I don't want to use a small amount of information, right? I want to collect as much as possible because people will start questioning you, right? Okay, so then let's do.
Large population.
So one major assumption were not strictly followed.
Large sample size.
And what else? There's something else.
What assumption?
Random mating.
No natural selection.
Exactly. There was natural selection.
Porque
The children of the homozygous recessive died.
Yo a veces había random mating.
Huh?
There was some random mating.
was random elements, but you guys went around. The first one didn't have error. Okay, so let's see. This is homozygous. Okay, this is the first one. Second one. Okay, predict what would happen to the P and the Q frequencies if you simulated another 5 generations. So if we, like Jan said, if we keep adding more process here.
You would keep switching to the big A.
There will be,
Frequency of P would increase as Q decreases.
okay, so do we see an increase here? So you see that pattern there. And then here you see that decrease, right? Since homozygous recessive are strongly selected against, would you expect the recessive allele to be completely removed from the population? So would it be possible to completely eliminate a deleterious or even lethal recessive allele in a population? What do you think?
Possibly, but it would take a long. Depends on the
Yes.
size of the
Yeah. And I mean, we have the evidence there, right? So because of what Maria said.
Okay. In order, like, you would have to use this equation over time, right, to see if the population is evolving or not.
What do you mean over time?
Like, you can't just like take like a
A sample.
a sample of say 250 individuals, and then because you make the equation work basically.
Exactly.
So then, if you do it that one time, then it's gonna satisfy the equation.
Exactly. So you're saying that you're gonna come back in 10 years and
That's
do
why
it
we
again?
and that's
why we did the parental at 5.
Yeah, it's not like that's my question. That then the only way to then find out if it's actually evolving, say, taking the same amount of individuals the next time, or not necessarily, but
Doesn't each of the same number?
You can, exactly. You can work with you can extrapolate, or you can work with I don't know percentages, but no, but definitely you would need to have many generations, right? It's not a one time analysis will tell you, oh yeah, these animals are going to become extinct because this is happening. No, you need to keep repeating the process.
okay. My question is basically when would population not satisfy the equation? I don't mean like theory, like what if the conditions the population would be in? I mean like numerically.
Yeah.
How would like a geneticist survey a population to be like, oh, like this does not give me the numbers that I basically made them to equal. Like, okay.
She's saying like if all the conditions that are needed for the Hardy-Ward, for the equation, Hardy-Weinberg equation to be, you use it, how can there ever be an evolution that will produce a result that is different from what is expected?
Okay, let me see if I understand. If you meet all the conditions, are you saying that? If you meet all the conditions, how can you tell if a population will eventually change?
Like if you
meet all the conditions,
no, the numbers will not change.
Oh, so is it like the other way around where you look at the equilibrium and then you say, because these two data points are the same, then we know that these conditions will not.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at the other way around, but no,
but you're never going to get numbers that don't satisfy that equation.
You're not going to get numbers that don't satisfy. No. Okay, listen.
The Hardy-Weinberg, I guess the equation is more to test whether or not those conditions are being met. It's not like
it's never going to be like, oh, it equals 0.99. Like it doesn't, because that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, you should see this group of Maria. Wait, you should see this type of problem or an analysis as something that will tell you how a population that you're working with will be in the future, right? Is a particular species going to become extinct? is Zika really affecting the population in Puerto Rico, and by how much, right? So it's not that you're looking to I mean, I can't think of an experiment, and why would you do that? That you manipulate your subjects in order to comply with this. Why do I want to do that? Maybe I would want to do it because I want to prove that genetic manipulation can actually be something like that, right? So if I work with organisms in the wild, no, you're gonna use this as a basis, but you don't have to meet those numbers.
Okay, if for some reason when it says like satisfy the equation, I thought that would mean if they gave me a population, okay, 82 out of 100 individuals have like like 82 big A, and then there's 2 small A.
Okay.
Out of 100, like that wouldn't.
Why don't we use the pocket mouse example? Okay, do you want to use that as to illustrate what you're asking? So we know that a population was completely white, and all of a sudden started changing. So definitely something happened, which was a gene, and eventually an allele was added to that population. So I'm not, if I study the mice, I'm not going to look for, okay, I want to meet these values, I want to make sure that the population, when I do the analysis, I can get these numbers.
Exactly. So
No.
you then have to go in at different times.
Exactly.
Years.
And then you're going to start looking at your results, and you will eventually say, look, definitely there was a lethal gene, or I want to prove that well, basically, I want to prove that the lava flow is actually helping the mice. So, and this is what supports those ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, a good question. I mean, that's what I want to promote from this exercise. I think we have let me see, heterozygous, and then genetic drift. What time is it? Should we skip this one? Because it's very similar, right? I mean, you can predict or kind of say what you're gonna get. That the number of heterozygous individuals. Let's see what's the condition. Are they gonna die? Okay. From case to see what happened to lethal recessive allele in a population. However, data from human population sometimes show an unexpected high frequency of a deleterious allele in some populations. Sometimes there is a slight advantage of being heterozygous for a trait rather than homozygous dominant. Can you guys give me an example of that? Malaria, right? Yep. So the situation is now more complicated. Homozygous recessives are still strongly selected against and do not survive to reproduce. But now, in addition, homozygous dominants have a lower reproductive rate than heterozygous. So we'll incorporate this fact into our simulation. So here we're looking at two forces being applied to the population, to the homozygous recessive and to the heterozygous. We can, yeah.
So these all assume that the selective coefficient is 1 or negative 1 entirely.
Why? Why do you say that?
Because that means, like, for instance, if the homozygous recessive is lethal, then that has a selective coefficient of negative 1, because all of them, or 0.
Zero, exactly. So 100% of them wipe out. But being heterozygous does what? Sometimes there's a slight advantage of being heterozygous for a trait. Okay, so maybe we can come back and do this one later, but let's do this one. This one is interesting, the last one. This is page, okay, 10. Genetic drift. So, remember that even though natural selection is creating adaptive change, this is, you guys, okay, never mind. Okay, it's creating adaptive change. It is not the only force molding a population. Equally important are the forces of random chance that can cause changes over time in a population, even though they are not adaptive. We will simulate this by creating smaller population in the classroom. Okay. Even though natural selection is creating adaptive change, do you guys understand this? What it means by that? Creating adaptive change.
So, like giving adaptation to direction.
Okay. Can you use the pocket mouse to explain what you're saying?
It's making like if they're in a dark terrain, right? It's making the darker mice more likely to survive, so that the light ones pretty much die off. So it's making the adaptations go towards the dark side.
Exactly. So the dark side. So not only the dark mice will survive in those lava flows, but the white or beige ones will what? Will gonna be very easy prey, right? So here's the thing. The class will be divided into several smaller subpopulations. These populations will remain isolated from each other and cannot interbreed. Okay, which is kind of what we did in the first case. Yeah.
In the section above, when we say equally important are the forces of random chance that can cause change, even though they are not adaptive. How would it be? Would that mean it just? What does that mean? It's not adaptive.
Or random chance that can cause changes over time in a population, even though they are not adaptive.
Like they may
Maybe
not
it's like a mutation that doesn't really help them, it just happens to be, and it stays in. It just happens to stay in the population. Not like a
Lactose tolerance, right? No one right now dies of that. It is a condition that appeared in our population, but no one is not.
But that's adaptive though.
Why?
It benefits like the organ.
It benefits.
Like,
Bueno, pero okay, pero you're still alive and you have a chance to reproduce, right? So you're not being taken out of the.
but it causes stuff. Like if you can't digest, do you ever
Like
say
if we were
it's
animals,
benefits,
it benefits.
I'm gonna answer this, but the first thing you need to know is nature is cruel. So nature doesn't care if you have pain, as long as.
But it can cause like a long-term thing that causes you to die. Like it's not the cause of death, but it can cause like other things.
Not today.
Yeah. Like if I'm
Maybe.
lactose intolerant, right, and I have it in my daily diet, me quita tomando tanto que it'll cause like the line y cosas, Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
I get what you're saying, but right now with medicine and all the advances, no one dies of lactose intolerance,
and
right?
we have other
Because
options. Other milks.
now,
It's just
if-
because it doesn't apply. There's not as much selective research anymore. I mean, historically, babies in the Neolithic age.
but what if we have a population of lions
I see.
that they start drinking milk as adults?
Wait, like if the lions intolerant and the only resource they have is milk,
It's
not
milk.
resource, but like
Yeah, like let's say
Then
the only
that's
thing they
fine.
have to eat is milk.
then they're not gonna eat it because they can't handle it.
So mammals are not supposed to drink milk as adults. So probably all these animals are lactose intolerant. And yes, so there you're gonna have something a condition that will cause some adaptation, which is either you find another source of food or you find the enzyme, you produce the enzyme to break down the. But in humans, a case of not adaptive can be something like that. So again, this is kind of what we did in the first, that we didn't separate. So keep the mating process as the same as in case one, one survive and reproduce as before. After successfully reproducing, you become your surviving offspring and mate at random with another individual, but only in your subpopulation. Record the genotype of your offspring in the data table below. So we have 4, 4, and 4. Instead of working in pairs, the groups are going to be of 4 students. Okay? So same thing. You're gonna start as a heterozygous individual. And then everyone's gonna start mating and producing their offspring.
I was thinking about that. I'm not sure. I'm just having to think about it and see what they're saying. Like, say I have money and I took you in, and it's like I have this news up.
We skip the third one. This is the fourth one.
You're serious.
You are heterozygous. And now make sure that you guys, all 4 of you, mate.
We're not wearing it. Is this one dying?
Seriously.
We just made it.
What are we doing? What?
So one time is one person.
That's it?
What?
I'm doing you.
No.
No, I haven't done anything.
Wait, so this is only.
Okay, I have. Who are we doing?
So you show me.
I ate one.
Okay.
And I put a little.
I'm bigger.
You're doing more.
They say 4 and 5. So who do I make? 4 and 5.
No, I'm bigger too.
Are we all bigger?
Yeah.
Bigger? Okay.
So what I'm sorry?
It doesn't matter.
You keep mating.
I'll do you mine.
I hit it.
I had a dominant already.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, es que su F3 era mi F1.
That was so random.
You finish mating?
Yeah, we all ended up doing big A.
Oh, and my F3 wasn't good. Like, you were more.
Oh, yeah. You messed up there.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna every time you eat college, I'm like, no, everybody dies. If you have a voice, you go. I'm just like, you know, we all thought
You wouldn't know.
if you like it's a serious thing, I'm gonna visit your house.
Why would you go to visit me in my house?
Because people do that.
That's crazy.
Like dinner is now. It's not creepy. My parents' friends have dinner at my parents' house.
Why do I have to know your house?
Not that close to friends.
Exactly.
No, Nisim hasn't had dinner in my house. I'm saying like that's an adult thing. Like Nisim has been to my house with like people.
Who wants to go to the board?
That's
Right.
And then I did Lucas house.
Oh my gosh, we just
And I did
No.
Yes, that's so fun.
We're 18, not 80.
Are you gonna sacrifice yourself again? Like the salad fork, the steak.
Everyone knows que está al lado de la casa.
I love that.
I like that. And you
Maybe
probably
Are you guys, wait, hey, biology, are you done?
Yes.
Okay, so, it's sharing information.
That's one.
Wait. Okay.
Only at the bottom.
Alright.
Wait, so we do for each group?
Only at the bottom.
No, I thought it was.
It's still each
It's everyone.
individual, everyone has a different.
Wait, no, yeah, soft population data, so everyone has to do it in their own, in their own group. And then,
Brothers, look at F5.
so,
Sí, nada más F5 te decía. F5 es que cambia.
Yeah. Why?
Porque hay 3 grupos. Pues es solo grupos.
Oh, can we just do that?
Yeah,
Since
that's
it's
what we're gonna do.
No. So yes.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Actually, I love
Let's go.
hold on, don't write it.
Let's go. You guys are group 1. You guys are group 2.
They were 1.
Wait.
I'm group
We have to write it down.
Okay, okay, now you
Oh
can,
my god, you don't.
Group 1. Who is homozygous dominant?
I've seen her express
F5.
love towards.
Dominant?
I haven't seen her.
in F5.
In F5.
Like, when she
Right,
agreed to
homozygous.
decide
Oh my god, it's perfect.
she said like she doesn't say it as
Whoa.
well.
Oh,
No.
sorry.
No, sí, like.
Absolute group.
I think it has to be like
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Oh my god.
like the little like,
Guys, shut up.
like sheepish smile.
25 to
Like talking about a boy or something. She's like,
Does anyone have homozygous dominant in F5?
No.
oh wait. No.
No, it's not our group yet.
Heterozygous.
Wait for,
Yep.
Yeah, wait, I do have.
That's not our group.
Don't worry about
we-
it. Don't worry about it.
I'm homozygous recessive.
so it would just be one.
One.
Okay. And then there's 3 of you guys.
And there's 3
Yes,
in
I
the
know that.
Ahora ya.
John,
And then
Yes, all four of us.
All 4 of us. 0.
That was
That's
good.
pretty good because we didn't show up today.
Yeah. The third thing would have been pretty awkward.
academically was good for you.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, can you help her? Group 1.
Group 1.
Get these numbers. You 1. Group 2, get group 3. Dale. ¿Cómo?
We were all.
Surviving on Wheels is just 12 for the group 3, by the way.
Thank you.
For group 2. No, it's 20. Isn't it 24 for recovery?
It would only be
So it's 8.
Group 4 people.
We're all homozygous.
be one.
Sonny, you need to fix the numbers at the top.
Okay, group 2.
1 dominant.
And then 7.
Yes.
Or 52. Whoa. And then it's 6. It's 6 and 6.
guys are one.
Yeah, 8 alleles. Four people.
Wait, but then how are there 26?
4, okay, 8, 12.
I'm wrong, sorry. Math. Gee, it's not my forte.
Okay, so there are
There are 13. It's not my forte today.
Okay, and then, so, you guys agree with those numbers? Okay, total alleles, it's a matter of adding this, right? But we have up here A, big A, and small a. And then we go here. So let's see. What would be the theoretical Hardy-Weinberg numbers for differential generation?
1 to 1.
Some people appreciate
Dale, who wants to come and write this? Come on. Dale, Maria, go. Yes. Go,
Oh
go.
wait, this one's more complicated.
No, but we're telling you what to write. Come on. We're saying that.
Maria.
So what would be the surviving alleles in the theoretical population? I mean, in the parental population. Are we going to use it? Okay. That hasn't changed. Lucas y Carlos, turn off the tablet. Vamos, let's see the results. Let's do this. Okay, F5, Hardy-Weinberg theoretical. Come on, guys. Es ya en
Lo mismo. 0.25, 0.25. Group 1.
Didn't we already write the F5?
Group 1, the same. Creo de
Okay, pero you guys are aware that we're writing the same numbers? Why? Based on their results. Okay, we're not. Okay.
Okay, let me see this. For us,
Yeah, we do have the numbers for our group.
how did they get the?
I mean, we ended up with big A, big
They
A.
got
Yeah,
4
we'll go with the
out of
numbers.
4.
No, we got 1 to 1.
So they just, yeah, do 1 to 0.
0,
Oh yeah,
1.
you did. They
One.
got
One
1 to 1.
squared, which is
Plus
What they got
0.
1, 2, 1.
Yeah, so it's just
But
zero,
for example,
zero.
4 out of the 8 alleles were
And 1,
dominant,
0, 0.
and then 4 out of the 8 were also recessive. No? See, in the in B and Q, not the genotypes. See?
Okay.
So 4 out of 8, 4 out of 8, 0.5, 0.5.
That's for them.
Yeah. But we're all doing it out of 8. Remember, we all have 4 people in our group times 2 alleles.
Okay. So what about group number 2?
So then we would be 1 out of 7 for 1 out of 8 Mania for big A. So 0.125 would be our P.
Okay, it would be what?
0.125.
0.125.
And then our Q would be 0.875.
That's why I like.
I don't know if you want to round to 0.875.
Does someone square that?
Can you square that?
Yes, I don't have it. No one else wants to do it.
Serena and Jan, can you square that, please?
Yeah.
I'll do Q.
Okay, yeah.
Alright.
Point
7.
zero. No, Maria got it. That's it.
Someone
0.77.
¿Cuál? Este.
No, I Q squared.
No hay otro número. Is there a third digit? Did you round?
Oh no, yeah, I rounded. Because it would be 766.
0.776.
No, 0.766.
Point.
219. Yeah, sorry.
You add it to make sure it's the next one.
I'm sure
It doesn't add up to, well, whatever. It's like 0.001 over.
CP's adding it. Then group number 3, ladies
It's
and
one-
the gentlemen back
No,
there.
it's 100 because we have all of them as AA.
Yeah, all of
Okay,
ours.
I'm gonna go back for a second. So you have
Big A,
A and 0.
We're all big A, big A.
So
Therefore,
it's gonna be 100.
Yeah, we must start with one. Esto uno, we didn't
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just more evolved.
Pero.
No, you just cheated.
Yes, but
we didn't see.
the
1
How do you cheat in
and 0.
evolution?
Okay, so what do we see there?
mess.
Big mess of numbers.
So, group 3 definitely evolved.
Ustedes son perfectos.
Yeah, we evolved.
We evolved real quick. But this is really not true to Hardy Weinberg because these populations are tiny.
Exactly. So let's see. It's pretty cool how different they all are, right? Not even close.
Not even
Not
close.
even
Yeah.
close. No, I mean, it's not because it's
Trial and
One
error.
is
Better
a
than
lot
ours.
less, and the other one is what?
Yours is still better than ours.
okay. So if we go here, so compare the initial parental genotype and allele frequencies in the different subpopulations in the classroom. Compare the initial parental genotype.
Alright.
Big A, heterozygous.
Big A, exactly. And allele frequencies.
0.5.
1.5. In the different subpopulations in the classroom. Compare the final genotype.
Esto, that's all.
Very different. For some reason.
The homozygous I'll say, between the other two groups.
It's like half.
Which one?
We're just kidding, I'm sorry.
Okay. And allele frequency. Yeah, I mean, they're so different. What do these results indicate about the importance of population size as an evolutionary force?
Well, that. No, sorry.
Yeah,
The smaller the population is, the faster it'll evolve.
the faster it evolves.
Because the gene pool is so much smaller that the alleles have to pass through.
It's the same reason why there's an accumulation of like lethal genotypes in when it's like incest. Because
Okay.
it's the same gene pool.
So actually, if we think of the deck of cards, that yeah, and one card is broken, the smaller the deck of cards, the bigger the chance to what? Exactly. Listen now, if we apply this to real life, okay? If we look at this and what we call genetic drift, right? If the population is reduced, can you tell me how that affects a group of organisms in nature? Does it help? Does it?
No, because it lowers the gene pool, so doesn't it lower like?
So what can be the
Like
consequences of something like that?
It could be that
And if you can give me an example, it would be great. Not, but
Like
then
there's
can you
less
tell me what?
variation.
it'll reach its fittest version faster than a bigger population, but a significant portion of the population may die.
Okay, and do you think that?
It may like counterbalance.
So you said that it's going to reach the fitness, right? Is it gonna? That fitness is it going to remain there, like indefinitely? I don't want to use that word, but for
If it reaches the fitness at a rate that exceeds, basically if it gets to the point where enough fit organisms can survive that it outbalances the number that are dying because they're not fit, then they'll continue to exhibit that trait.
okay, they will exhibit that trait. So, I mean, I'm just thinking that. No, I don't want to say that yet. Let's see what do you guys think?
Is it saying that the population size started off as small and has to stay that way? or is it not? Como que, is there something that's causing a lot of them to die out? Or es como que,
This particular problem, or
sí, como que when it says small population size, like what did the question
okay,
say?
here's the thing. That's what you're gonna read today for homework. You guys, how do you define genetic drift?
Okay. Members of more population made within separate, which are geographically separated.
That would be like dimensions, right?
Okay,
It's like they'd be geologically isolated from one another on the Galapagos Islands, but then when like one would make the trek back to another island, then that's like genetic drift.
So the one that moved to another island is taking what? It's taking a particular gene that maybe is not present, and now that population that will develop there definitely will have a difference from the previous population, because this particular allele becomes more abundant in the population. Genetic drift, guys, is when the number of alleles shift. Either they decrease or they increase. So how can alleles in a population increase?
More like people from other.
Let's see.
For some reason there's
Two people answering. Who wants to answer? I want both answers. Who goes first?
you have
Como que when migration, I guess, can shift the
Good.
frequency.
Migration.
Yeah.
Okay. It will increase the number of alleles in the population. Very good. So it has to be of the same species.
Yeah.
Of course. Maria, you were saying? Yeah, I like what you said.
I just figured like if you have a certain like mating pattern, those alleles you want it over.
So mating pattern or a factor that promotes the reproduction with a particular group of individuals. Maybe if we talk about birds, there's a group of females that are of males that are extremely colorful. The other ones also have the colors, but maybe with not the same intensity. So the accumulation of pigment usually means more of the more of the gene that produces the pigment, right? So exactly, the more they reproduce, the more they're gonna be, the more abundant that allele will be in the population. Listen, it can be something like that. It can be a catastrophic event that we have mentioned before. Just by chance, an earthquake or a road was built, or a fence. How they're talking about the biological impact of Trump's wall, right? That it's going to have a really big impact if that wall is built between the flow, in terms of the flow of genes of animals that live there. So it's very interesting. Right, it can be something completely random. What about decreased genes in a population?
Like the gene pool.
So what can cause a decrease in alleles? No, I'm sorry, I said genes. Alleles in a population.
like an environmental change, so it'll change what traits would be most suited for the environment.
Can you be more, give me,
In the pocket mouse, when the volcanic rock hardened and there was dark substrate, then the dark colored mice were more successful, so there was a reduction in the amount of the light colored mutation.
But that would be in natural selection.
in that case, yeah, in that case, natural selection is the one that is forcing the survival of a particular allele or the development of a particular allele in that population. What if all of a sudden really?
Is that like bottleneck? Where it's just like for some random chance, like
There's-
for some reason there was it could be like volcano erupted and killed everything.
Exactly. Okay, so we always, listen, when we talk about allele, changing the number of alleles, we always talk about earthquakes and physically separating. Guys, a hurricane is a big event that will wipe out part of the population, not picking the strongest one. No, it's going to wipe out completely random. You know, the Puerto Rican parrot is a classic example. Building these roads and construction not only can increase, but it can also actually decrease, because one side will increase the alleles, and the other one is going to decrease. And then you said immigration to increase the number of alleles, so what would be to decrease? Immigration. Okay, that's also what happens in nature. And then to finish with the concept of genetic drift, if we increase the number of alleles in a population, or we decrease the number of alleles in a population, what can be the result in terms of the future of that species?
If you decrease the amount of
If you decrease or if you change, decrease or increase, what would be the future of that species? Now I'm not talking about a particular population, but the species in that area.
It could evolve.
It would take a
Yes.
really long time because in order for that those genotypes to kind of matriculate to all the other populations, it would take a really long time.
Okay. So
Generally, with a lack of genetic diversity, then the population might become more extinct. But if that allele is becoming less ubiquitous because it's due to natural selection, then it would probably mean that the species is producing more and its population is increasing.
the population is increasing.
It depends on which allele.
Exactly. But for example, if I have the same species, I have two different populations nearby, but there's no immigration or emigration. Let's say that happens. Pero, actually, no. Let me rephrase that. You have two populations of the same species, and you allow, let's say, emigration. You allow organisms from one population to go to the other. If that keeps happening for a really long time, what can happen to the species? Okay, now, or the population, but I'm using the term species in each of those groups. What would be a consequence? What would be the result? What would be the
It becomes more diversified. Oh, is that the allotrop species?
Allopatric speciation?
Well, like each population will come to resemble the other more.
So I have species A and I have species A, same species, and we allow this to happen. Okay? If that keeps happening over time, and then all of a sudden this stops, right? So we know that the frequency of alleles change, and that's what we mentioned with Hardy-Weinberg. Now, I'm going a little bit further. What do you think will happen to this and that? What? Okay, the concept of speciation.
Because they're not in because if they were, they would keep the same.
Exactly. They will be, first of all, genetically compatible, and they will have the same alleles, right?
So in aggregation, they will become separate species.
Okay, if we allow an event, in this case I chose immigration into this one, right? So, but you can choose again a hurricane or any of the ones that we just mentioned, and these two are separated for a really long time. Well, of course, if we're talking about animals, if you talk about bacteria, we're not talking about years, right? Eventually, what's going to happen is that if an animal from here goes back here, oops, now they won't be able to make. And that's the process of speciation. That's what you guys are going to read. And listen, this is another way diversity increases in a population. So when I don't know if you heard that the manatee was taken from the what?
Oh, I thought you were going to say like the large thing.
From the endangered species list. Did you read that?
Yeah. Now it's just like threatened, right?
Huh?
Now it's just like threatened.
Exactly. Did you read the reaction of people?
No.
Of the reaction of agencies and biology scientists?
Happy.
Happy?
They were concerned because, or some of them were concerned because now there wouldn't be a focus on preserving them anymore.
Okay, so in Florida, this applies to Florida, not to the Aquileia manatee. Wait, no, sorry, I shouldn't say that. This regulation applies to the manatee in Florida and the manatee in Puerto Rico, because we belong to the United States. The thing is, the reason why they took the manatee from the endangered species list is because of the numbers and the analysis they did on the number of manatees in Florida, not in Puerto Rico. So for us, this is not cool that they took those animals. Why? Because now the restrictions that we used to have, like no jet skis and in I don't know, a couple of miles from the shore and all that, we cannot enforce it as strongly as before. O sea que para nosotros, it's not a good idea to take it out, but unfortunately it applies. And unfortunately, they didn't use the data that we have here in Puerto Rico. So, why did I end up talking about that? Because I went anyways, yeah, I was gonna say something.
Did they breed?
Wait,
like,
maybe you're saying how you're they're separate.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it has some of it. I completely lost my train of thought. But anyways, when you have events like this, in which populations are separated for a really long time, you will, the population might experience a new the process of speciation. Okay, but again, that's not always bad because you're increasing diversity in an ecosystem, and the more diverse, the healthier an ecosystem will be. Okay, so I hope that we're done with Hardy-Weinberg. That you saw that it's not that we want to get those numbers, right? The specific numbers. Is that you're going to use the equation to basically establish what's going on within the population. Is it evolving? Should I take measures to protect the species, or should we be concerned? Is this a health problem, Zika, or whatever? So that's the type of function that these formulas have. So I'm gonna let you go. Listen, let's see. I told you about the mock. There are questions for the next chapter, 22. Should we have? Let's have a short quiz tomorrow on our problems. Hardy-Weinberg, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna have a quiz on this.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Throw on the paper, please.
Recycle.
Recycle the paper.
I'm not ready for that.